Let's catch up with Pauline Hanson now, the One Nation leader. She joins us from her home in Queensland. Good to talk to you, Pauline. Your party's been mentioned a lot by the government today. They're suggesting that the coalition is trying to steal your voters by talking up a divisive immigration agenda. What do you make of that?
Well, Chris, it's music to my ears to actually hear an immigration policy out of the coalition government, so it's great to hear it. And a lot of what they're saying is directly out of my policy booklet myself, you know, what we put out there, but it's good to hear and it's about time. The government is very clearly scared of both the coalition and One Nation, you know, expressing our views about the migration in Australia and what has happened. You mentioned about 300,000 a year. Chris, it's closer to 500,000 a year, people coming in. We've had the highest intake of migrants in the history of this country of 1,800 people a day. And when Burke says about new migrants coming here, you know, skilled labour, what are these nail technicians, masseurs, dog walkers, Uber drivers? Because in the figures between 22 and 23, we only had 1,800 construction workers that came into the country. You know, these weren't skilled migrants. They're allowing these students to come here, change their courses and get on a bridging visa and stay here in the country. So it's been farcical. The whole lot has been uncontrolled. And Chris, I'll make this point. 30% of Australians are foreign born. So we haven't allowed time for people to assimilate, become Australian and accept our way of life and culture, and I'm concerned about that changing as we see what's happened. And we brought so many wrong people into the country over the years, people that don't want to be Australians, don't respect our laws, and I'm fed up with seeing the Australian flag basically spat on by a lot of people that don't respect it. So Australians are angry about this. They've been warmly welcoming migrants for decades and it's been wonderful. But we really need to have a look at the calibre of the people, where they're coming from, and we need to have a debate about this and speak about it.
Yeah, it's been pathetic the way Labor have just tried to attack the coalition over this, because in his press conference today, Tony Burke had to admit they had problems. He admitted that there are tens of thousands of people overstaying visas that he can't get out of the country. He says he'll do something in a few months. He's been in power for 4 years. And the other point is he's admitted that there are still people coming in from Gaza 6 months after the ceasefire. So there are real problems here. The question I want to ask you about the coalition's approach is, do you agree with Labor? Do you think that the coalition is looking to get voters back from One Nation? Or isn't this really the coalition going back to where it was on immigration back in the Howard years?
I think they're going a little bit stronger now than what they were in the Howard years. I think they are very concerned about the votes they're losing to One Nation. But Chris, they have to open up their eyes, OK? They're not kittens anymore, they're cats, and we're in this game that we have to do what's right for the country. And, you know, we do need to do something about it. And Labor is playing this game, or catching up with One Nation. Regardless of whether they're catching up with One Nation, our policies, the fact is we have to discuss this, and policy has to change, the way we've had it under the Labor Party. You know, there's over 25,000 people in the country that have been here for more than 10 years, overstayed their visas. What has the government done about it? Absolutely nothing. These people are working here. Are they paying their taxes? Probably not. So it's a whole system that we have here has failed us as a nation. We've got lack of housing, rental accommodation, these people overstayed. When you come to Australia, you sign a contract. I intend to stay here for only 3 months. Well, that's your contract that you've signed. And if these people don't go back, if you're found, well, then you're sent out of the country, never, ever to return again.
Absolutely.
I'd be very extremely hard on this. And these students, once you finish your course, then you go back to your country, you apply to come here. You don't get to stay in the country.
It's not unreasonable, Pauline, and it's a debate this country has to see, and it has to see some action on these issues.
This is not just outrage. This is a political shift happening right in front of your eyes. And most people are not even realizing how big this moment actually is. What you just heard from Pauline Hanson is not random political noise. It is a direct, unapologetic claim that the coalition is now copying her policies almost word for word. And if that's true, then this isn't just a debate anymore. This is influence at the highest level of politics. Let's break this down properly, because there are layers here that go far beyond a simple interview. First, Pauline Hanson is not just reacting, she is asserting dominance. When she says that the coalition's migration plan is coming directly out of my policy booklet, that is a bold statement. That is her saying, we set the agenda and now they are following us. In politics, that kind of claim is huge. Because once a smaller party starts dictating the language and direction of a major party, the entire balance of power begins to shift. Second, pay very close attention to the numbers she is using. She dismisses the commonly discussed figure of 300,000 migrants per year and instead pushes it closer to 500,000. Then she goes even further, talking about record-breaking migration levels, thousands of people entering daily, and what she describes as a system that is completely out of control. Now, whether those numbers are debated or not is almost secondary. The real impact is how this is being framed. This is about perception. This is about creating a sense of urgency, pressure, and even fear around the issue. And that is exactly what drives public opinion. Third, she shifts the conversation from policy to failure. This is where the tone becomes even more aggressive. Overstayed visas, lack of enforcement, people staying in the country for years without consequences. She is painting a picture of a government that has lost control, not just struggling, but failing completely. And then comes the political strike. She doesn't just attack labor, she positions both major parties as reactive. According to her, labor is playing catch-up, while the coalition is scrambling to win back voters by adopting her ideas. That is a very calculated move, because if voters start believing that narrative, then one nation stops being seen as an outsider and starts being seen as the original source of these policies. But here's where things get even more interesting. This entire exchange reveals something much bigger than migration policy. It reveals political pressure at its peak. The coalition is clearly feeling the heat, losing voters, facing criticism, and now suddenly shifting its stance in a way that mirrors Hanson's long-standing positions. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when internal polling, public sentiment, and electoral risk all start pointing in the same direction, and Hanson knows it. That's why her tone is not defensive. It's confident, almost triumphant. She's not arguing to be heard anymore. She's speaking like someone who believes they've already won the argument. Now think about what that means moving forward. When major parties start adopting the policies of smaller, more controversial parties, the entire political landscape begins to change. The debate becomes sharper, the language becomes stronger, and the lines between mainstream and fringe start to disappear. This is how political narratives shift. Not overnight, but through moments like this, when you're seeing where one side claims ownership and the other side starts sounding very, very similar. And then comes the biggest question of all. If the coalition really is adopting these policies to win back voters, then what happens next? Do they go even further? Do they double down? Or do they risk losing their identity completely in the process? Because history has shown one thing very clearly. When a party starts chasing voters instead of leading them, it rarely ends well. It creates confusion, weakens trust, and opens the door for someone else to take full control of the narrative. And right now, Pauline Hanson is positioning herself to be that someone. This is not just a reaction, this is a warning sign, a signal that the political battlefield is shifting, and that the next phase of this debate is going to be far more intense than anything we've seen before. So the real question is not whether the coalition copied her policies. The real question is, are they doing it out of strategy or out of desperation? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over, and what happens next could change everything.